environmental issues have now become center stage. It's the catchphrase, it's the sexy thing to do internationally. In terms of competitiveness for a company, what does it mean for what you refer to as the first mover advantage? Those people who decide to go environmental, what does it mean for them?
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show this afternoon. In terms of first mover advantages, what we've seen in Europe and America is that most major promotional gifting suppliers comply to industry standards that have been set by both the European Union and the American government,
Right.
which specifically refer to the amount of dangerous chemicals that can be found in gifting items such as pens, folders, drinkware items, etc. And in America and Europe, there are very stringent laws around how much lead, cadmium, phthalates in plastic certain products can contain. Specifically within that industry, companies or suppliers can be fined up to $10 million for not being compliant with respect to these principles. So we decided to take the initiative in being the first company in South Africa to have what we call an environmentally compliant and child-safe range. What that specifically means is, one, for health reasons, there are major benefits to consumer South Africa in that all of our products adhere to the strictest of international and South African standards. And then from an environmental perspective, it ensures that our landfills aren't full of products that contain high levels of lead and cadmium.
This idea of international standard, to what extent does the regulatory framework in South Africa comply with international regulations, and to what extent do we actually have a homegrown statutory framework for environmental issues and environmental enterprises?
So we thought we'd really be take first mover advantages to a new level by moving sort of ahead of what's actually being done in South Africa. The new Consumer Protection Act is out, which specifically mentions issues such as hazardous products. It doesn't specifically relate to the composition of those products, but it is something that we are working on in terms of building an awareness around what is being done in the rest of the world.
Yeah, obviously the reason I'm asking this is that, yes, South Africa at the recent Copenhagen summit has committed itself to reducing CO2 emissions, gas emissions, 34,000, eventually becoming 42,000. But I don't get a sense, and I could be wrong, that all of corporate South Africa is moving in tandem with the government's objectives. I get a sense that this is a very new industry.
Absolutely. So I would say that we're probably sort of 3 to 5 years ahead of our competitors in terms of what's being done in the promotional gifting space. What we must realize is that in America, this is a massive industry. It's an $18 billion industry. And with major companies, there was a case last year where a large amount of drinking glasses were recalled because they contained excessive levels of cadmium. So I think it just sort of gives us leeway in the market to, one, build awareness, and two, promote a range that gives corporate South Africa the option of buying environmentally compliant, clean and green promotional gifting products at a price point that is competitive within the industry. We specifically have absorbed all the costs of delivering an environmentally compliant range to the market so as to really offer real value to our customers.
You know, a big issue in South Africa obviously is job creation and creating local manufacturing industries. To what extent, in trying to raise your environmental footprint, do you source locally, and then how do you establish quality control in that respect?
So all of our products, we ran over 6,000 tests when we launched our range. To ensure that we were compliant, we rejected over 100,000 units. So what specifically happens in the promotional gifting industry is that, as you'll know, the paint industry have made sure that paint is now lead-free. With our drinkware items, for example, you'll find less than 200 parts per million of lead and cadmium, whereas in the industry, the standard is between 6,000 to 8,000 parts per million of these specific elements. So going back to your question, what we do is we test our products pre-production and post-production. And in South Africa specifically, we work with your smaller sort of promotional companies to look at building sustainability.
Right. As a customer, I'm most likely to go onto the internet to try to source interesting, quirky gifts to give out, even en masse. There isn't an interface that I'm going to have with the manufacturer, and I don't have the tools of identifying what is environmentally compliant and what is not, what is safe and what is not. How do you overcome that barrier? Because certainly you must use the internet as a selling ground, and you must also face the competition that exists on the internet.
So we work very closely with our promo companies in building awareness and then educating them around the specific details of what environmental compliance means. So that's sort of the approach that we've taken, is sort of literally hand-holding our promo companies through the process of letting them understand what the value proposition of environmental compliance means. And we can, assure all of our customers that every single product in the range, from the fabric on our bags to the zippers, are all less than 200 parts per million on lead and cadmium.
And very briefly, very briefly, does it influence the price in any way if you're environmentally compliant? Does it make your products more expensive?
So, as I said earlier, absolutely not. We took a strategic decision that in being the first company in South Africa and Africa to supply environmentally compliant products, that we have fully absorbed all of those costs. And if you look on a product-for-product basis, we meet all of our competitors on a pricing perspective.
All right, I thank you so much, Mark Lachman, who is the Managing Director of Barron Gifts, talking to us about environmental issues.